Hi, I'm your host, Reena Suri, and welcome to Thriving Changes, a place where we share stories from brave and courageous people who have navigated challenges, crisis, or a change in their personal or professional life and gave it a new meaning. It's a platform where leaders open up about their fears, vulnerabilities, and the journey that led them to triumph. Our hope is to inspire and motivate others to take their first step towards thriving changes. Today's podcast has left my heart feeling full. It's a rare conversation with a rare individual. I feel this world can do more men like him. Mike Pintaric is a full time high school robotics and computer science teacher and his husband of Ashley's for over 14 years. Ashley was a guest in our last episode in which she shared her burnout story. In this episode, Mike talks about his own troubled past and how he navigated that journey. Their individual mental state, both his and Ashley's, was taking a toll on their lives and their young family. But they chose to stick it out and support each other and themselves through those difficult times. Mike shares his cute love story, and more importantly, the core values and the learnings that make their marriage strong, healthy, and nurturing. It's a conversation straight from his heart and a must listen. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Rena. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for doing this and taking out the time. I
Of
know how
course.
life is busy, but I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's why I have my summers off as a teacher, so I can do fun things like this. So
Yeah,
I'm happy and thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. And yeah, this will be fun.
good. So, just giving a little bit of context and background, we had your wife, Ashley, in our podcast, and she spoke about her own journey about the toxic work environment, the
Mhm.
misalignment of values, losing her own identity. And along with it, she was also going through postpartum depression and just feeling very burnt out.
Yeah.
And she credits you a lot. If I remember her exact words, they were like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him.
Mhm.
And when I was preparing for the podcast this morning and I was reading and I was articulating what introduction and how do I connect the two episodes, it actually filled my heart that
Mhm.
it's so rare to see that kind of relationship and
Mhm.
actually play it out.
Mhm.
And that's when I asked her, I said, I would love to know what he was going through because he must have gone through his own journey, seeing you and how he supported you. And here we are.
Here
So,
we are. And it's very humbling that she would say that because it was just a lot of teamwork going through it for both of us, going through different
yeah.
parts of our journey and having to navigate the ins and outs of life in this day and age. So yeah, there was a lot going on during those many years. So
Yeah. No, but there's so many lessons to be learned out of that. I think it's what we take away from them and how, if we can articulate and somebody else can take
yep,
something from that journey. And
yep.
that's what this platform is all about.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do,
That's
your
the time.
professional background, and then we'll dive into the story.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm currently the husband of Ashley. Very proud of that. We've been married 14 years, just had our 14th anniversary. So a pretty big milestone for both of us, I feel, because we both came from, I'd say, not the healthiest of relationship guidance from our parents. And then I'm also proud father of two kids, two boys. I keep us really busy with Minecraft stories and movies and soccer. Um, they love soccer, so we're starting to travel for tournaments. So that keeps us busy. I'm also a teacher, so I've been teaching, gosh, it's like 21, 22 years. I started out as a math teacher and then now is currently a robotics and computer science teacher at Loveland High School in Colorado. So pretty busy. I don't have a lot of time, like a lot of free time, but that's where I'm at professionally. I also do other random things like work on a PhD to get for fun. I don't know if it's fun or not, but it's fun. It's been fun journey. And then being in education, I really feel that being a lifelong learner is important. And that stems from my childhood and the pattern my mom set for me as being someone who went to school later on in life with two kids, my sister and I, and then became a teacher. So that's how I got here as a teacher and moved to Colorado specifically to be a teacher. Believe it or not, I'm from Santa Cruz, California. So I left that area back in '04 when housing market was crazy, still is crazy, but left my childhood home and came out here to start a new life. And that's where I kind of landed here at my school in '07, and then met Ashley soon after that. So that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah, thank you for that. So you did mention that you've had a difficult childhood, and so walk us through that
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah, so it even started before I was born. My mom shared the story with me and it hit me really hard. But she and my biological dad were together and had my sister, who's 2 years older than I. And then my mom was working for the airlines, TWA, as a flight attendant. And my dad was basically stay at home, wanted not to work in a traditional job. So he decided to sell drugs as the main source of income for us. And then when my mom found out she was pregnant with me, she was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I am basically raising this girl on my own. I have a husband who isn't really being a father. What am I going to do? So she actually thought about aborting me. That was an option. So that really hit me home when I heard that. That's how I came into the world. So thank God I was able to live. But starting out, my childhood, we lived in an apartment. My dad gambled away the equity in the house. So then we had to move to an apartment. And really early on, didn't have that stable household, I guess you could say. And one of my earliest memories was when my mom finally gave my dad the ultimatum: either you stop selling cocaine and go get a real job, or you need to move out. Like, I can't endanger these kids. So I was probably about 4 or 5 at the time. And I remember him packing up and leaving and chose the easier lifestyle instead of us. So that was really hard. And then obviously, my mom being a single parent now, having to go down to the welfare office and get toys for Christmas because that's all we could afford, moving into a different house with some roommates. And then eventually, my mom met my stepdad, or got together with my stepdad. It's hard to tell the stories when they start talking, but they said they met before I was even born. And then they reconnected, and then he became the father figure in my life. Well, in addition, I did go over to my dad's house every weekend, and my sister and I growing up until we were old enough to choose not to. So really didn't have that stable household. And my mom breaks my heart as a teacher when I hear this, when I've been told this, because when my mom was in high school, she was told she was dumb, she would never make anything of herself by her teachers. Little did they know that she basically was living on her own from her own abusive parents when she was 16. So she couldn't focus on that. So when she decided to become a teacher, that really, I think, really the struggling of going back to a community college in your 30s and then the university and then getting a job when I think at 40, when she got her job basically as a teacher, first time teacher. And that really showed that you can do it to me, that there wasn't limitations. So her and my stepdad got married, but then they got divorced and they got back together. So, man, whew, Rena, you talk about trauma from childhood and not a good example. That was my example. Lots of divorces, lots of passive aggressive, not fighting, not talking about issues. Just, man, trauma. Let's just call it trauma as a child.
That's a lot. That's a lot. And I'm still taking it, soaking it all in.
Yeah.
But she did set some examples for you. Like the resilience is definitely there, and going back to school or being that assertive figure that, okay, I need to protect my children. And
Mhm.
it must have been hard to go through that process and even to continue living with him, with somebody who lives so dangerously, and to have young kids together. And on the other hand, I also see the generational stuff that has been carried on. We carry our patterns.
Mhm.
And not that, I guess we can't really blame them because they knew nothing better.
Mhm.
But it does make me realize, I think something that I really value is that if we want things to be different, if I want things to be different from my child, I need to change certain things in myself
Mhm.
and the way I do life
Yeah.
so that it's not passed on.
Mhm.
And that was my biggest learning from my journey
Mhm.
that actually motivated me for therapy or coaching.
Yeah, and that's where if you look at the call it generational sins, right, that get passed
Yeah.
down to all of us,
Mhm.
the damage. My mom, she didn't have a stable childhood either,
Yeah.
but she wanted to provide that for us the best that she could.
That she could. Yeah.
And even though it wasn't, I would say, in my mind, looking back, the best, because man, a lot of hiding in my room, my emotional mental states were like, hide, just avoid, because it's just easier to do that. Now, when my mom and I talk about this and just have hard conversations with my parents saying, this is what I dealt with. And they were like broken because they're like, Mike, we tried our best. And the beautiful part is that they went to counseling, my mom, my stepdad. My mom's, you got to go to counseling if we're getting back together. And my stepdad was like, hell no, I'm not going to do that. But they did, right? And they repaired a lot of damage from both their childhoods through that process. Then for me, as I'm deconstructing all the stuff that I dealt with and managed and avoided, and I also was then encouraged, like, oh, I should probably go to counseling too. That's not a taboo. It's not a bad thing. And as my mom went through her stuff with her parents, I went through stuff with my parents, and then now as a dad myself and a parent myself, it's like, how do I train my kids to be a better dad to me? And I even had an instance with my kid because he was so mad at me because I think I set a rule down or something. And he was like, I hate you. You're the worst dad ever. I'm like, okay, let me explain to me what a really bad dad is. And I talked to him about my own dad. And he was like, what? And I'm also, so Wes, I'm like, my goal is that you're a better dad than me. And he looks at me, he's like, I don't think that's possible. But really, I understand my issues are going to get passed on to him. He's going to have to go to counseling probably
Yeah.
because of just the stuff. But we're working really hard internally for ourselves because we understand that the trauma from our childhood is affecting us now.
Yeah. You're not alone to hear that. I hate
Mhm.
you.
Yeah,
I
no, I
heard
know.
that as a mom.
Yeah,
So
yep.
I think all parents go through their
Mhm.
journey, especially when they're setting down certain rules or setting
Mhm.
boundaries. So how did you meet Ashley? When did you meet
Yeah.
Ashley?
So I left California to just restart my life. I think I was pigeonholed into being a certain person around my parents, around my friends. The passive Mike, the one that just got along with everybody, that didn't really do anything bold. So I was like, I need to leave and do something else. So I moved out here in '04, didn't have a job, didn't really know where I was going to live, and landed in Loveland. And little did I know that was going to really transform my life. And after a few years of renting, I was able to buy a house. When I bought my house, I would host parties, and Ashley would show up with a big group of friends, right? And when I first met her in a social setting, I was like, dang, she's pretty cute. And she has her stuff together. She would dress to the nines, and I would dress like t-shirts, whatever, right? I wasn't like the professional. I was just who I was at these meetings or these gatherings. And I didn't talk to her for 6 months. I was afraid. And then I started talking to her, and I'm like, wow, she's really quality. She comes from a similar background where her parents were divorced, which I was really shocked at, honestly, because of how she presented herself as being a certain way of being really well put together. And little did I know that we would start to connect as friends. And I even tried asking her out one night for 4th of July bike ride, and she invites her friend. I was like, not going to happen. So another year later, actually, of us just getting closer as friends, of a bunch of people pointing it out that, hey, you guys should, like, why aren't you dating her? And I just brushed them off because I was like, no, we're just friends. And I had been so wounded in the past by trying to date girls that were my friends that I really wanted to protect that relationship. So much so that I took her out to ice cream and then got scared because we really connected and didn't talk to her for 2 weeks. And she was really like, what the heck is up with this guy? He's just going to be like a dork and not really pursue me. And then finally, I had to go over to her house and kind of fess up because I blew it. And to this day, we laugh because I sat opposite of her in the room and started to explain my feelings and everything. She told me, she's like, well, I'm really feeling attached to you too. I'm like, she's like, what are you going to do about it? My cheek was twitching. It was really cute because I was like, I don't know what to do. So we ended up dating, starting to date. She tried to break up with me 2 days later. I was like, what's wrong with you? What are you talking about? We just went on our first date. This is going to be our second date. What's your problem? And little did I know that she had so, and I find this out later in a relationship, but she had so many things from her upbringing of abusive guys that would bail on her and not be good. And her friends were super protective of her because of all the things that she went through. And I was someone that she was like, oh no, like I think I might marry him. And she was afraid because I was going to ruin her plans. And little did I know that my first and only girlfriend, by the way, that's the only person I've ever dated, I ended up marrying a year later. And we really started out our relationship not knowing how much of the things that were going to come up when you're together with someone. But oh man, whew, our first big fight was a week after we got engaged, and we were arguing about venues. And I was pouting in the corner, and she was pissed at me and mad, and we're arguing. And oh man, I didn't see a side of her fireballness that came out until then. So that's how we met.
Yeah, it's so cute. It's such a cute story.
It is.
Yeah. So then there was also some stuff happening in the back
Yeah.
with the marriage. I know that it's such a precious time when you're preparing for it and that moment together.
It
It,
was, yeah. So there was a lot of stuff before us getting married that, so when I flew her out to California, she met my dad, my biological dad, who ended up stopped selling drugs when I was about 18, moved out of his apartment, lived in a trailer basically on the side of a road, a camper trailer. When we flew out there, we met him, and this was about 2010. And his background was his dad was an alcoholic, so he was an alcoholic. So I also have to watch alcohol. And he met her and he started to be, I don't know, it was just weird. It was just a weird interaction. My mom had warned me, she's like, watch out for your dad. So my dad and I had kind of lost communication and we knew where he kind of lived, but not really. So then when we're planning for the wedding, my wife's aunt died back in February. So I don't know if she told you that. So that was pretty rough because I never met her aunt. So she had to deal with that grief. And then as we were planning the wedding, my sister had arranged with my dad to fly out. She was going to take care of him because we knew how much he had to be managed and babysat. And it was probably April and no, early May that my sister and I started talking. And I was like, hey, have you talked to dad recently? She's like, no. And he didn't send a card to my niece whose birthday had just passed. I'm like, that's weird because normally he would be calling us every 6 weeks or so. So we tried to call him. His phone was off, but he turned it off mainly to keep the cell phone battery powered because he didn't want to run his generator. Cool, whatever. And left a message, but he didn't call us back. So then that weekend, we asked my stepdad to go down the storage shed to see if he was there or if they'd seen him. And they hadn't. And we didn't know where his trailer was. So we put a missing persons report out with the county to try to find him, just to be aware. So on Monday, and this is 5 days before our wedding, I had called somebody, a reffing association, and talked to the guy and said, hey, have you seen my dad? I've seen he hasn't worked for a couple of weeks. Have you talked to him? Can you get a hold of him? So he called me back, and it was Monday night around like 4 or 5 o'clock and said, hey, Mike, yes, I do know your dad. I have not seen him in a while. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, do you know where he's at? I know where his trailer's parked. His car has not moved for weeks. There's damage on the front, and I'm so sorry. And I'm like, can you please let me know where the car is? I've already contacted the police. I'm so sorry. So at that moment, I knew my dad had passed. I knew the day before, actually, that something was up. And it was really hard, obviously, because getting married is celebration time, and it just ground to the halt. The joy that was going to be that week just began the tailspin. And got through the wedding, went on our honeymoon, but that lingering pain from a childhood of ups and downs. And even though he wasn't really my father figure, he was my dad. He was my biological dad, right? So the genetics are there. And my stepdad is more my, we call it Papa. That's my kid's grandfather. That's what we call him because they never met my biological dad. So that was really tough going into marriage with a trauma from childhood that I avoided because I didn't have to deal with it when you're by yourself. You're like, whatever. Now I have someone in who's also grieving loss for aunt. I'm grieving the loss of my dad. We're now together, joint everything, bank accounts, everything, right? Having to manage this new life while she is working in an organization that expected a lot out of her, and she was good at her job. And I'm just teacher Mike, so I'm hanging out during the summer now, so I have nothing to do, sitting at home, newly married, with all that happening in my brain and not knowing what to do. So yeah, talk about fun. No. And people, when they hear that, they're like, what the, how'd you survive? And I'm like, I don't know, just, we did it. We did it together. So,
Yeah. No, it also just shows that how we are designed to survive. The brain's job is
mhm,
to support us to survive.
mhm,
And we just shut off emotionally, mentally. We block off the plane somewhere
yeah.
and just in that survival mode.
Yeah. And I remember one instance when Ashley and I were talking this summer, though, because I was sitting around the house all by yourself, lost in your brain. Wouldn't recommend it. Get out and do things. If you're in that state, go out and talk to people.
Mm.
But for me, I didn't want to talk to anybody. And I remember at a very rock bottom point, just sitting on my back patio, staring at the trees in my neighborhood and not knowing what to do. And my wife gets on the phone with my mentor and he gets me on. He's like, Mike, you have to go talk to someone about this. You have to go to counseling. And my pride was like wrecked because I don't want to go talk to anybody. I can do this on my own. And that really hit hard, that like the people I loved and cared about the most were basically saying, you're not well. And I use this analogy now with students because being a high school teacher, mental health, post COVID, post 2020 has really pushed to the forefront. And I tell kids, look, like, I get it. Your life stinks. You think your life stinks. You need to go talk to someone. I don't want to. That doesn't work. Let me put it this way. If you broke your arm, are you going to go see a doctor? Well, yeah, of course, because I know I'm hurt. Well, your brain's hurt. You need to go talk to someone. Understand that talking to someone about your past trauma and the things that have happened in your brain, and the research has shown there's so many things that kids, when they're young, they deal with trauma and their brain doesn't develop fully. And parts of the brain just need to be worked on. And that, to me, from my own personal experiences, I can now pass on to my own kids, to my own students who I'm impacting. And that was very humbling and very hard as a male, because males are taught that you don't share your emotions. You don't talk about things. My stepdad never talked about anything. My dad never talked about his childhood trauma. So why would I need to talk about that? But I had made a commitment to Ashley. I want to get better. I want to do better for our own kids. And after we talked about our family life, we're like, we got to do better. So now I can take those experiences to my own kids and talk to them about, hey, we go to counseling. And we're breaking that stigma of counseling's bad, counseling is not good. And that's something that I think as a society we have to push through, because mental health and things that have happened in your brain, not to your own fault, because you're young, you're a child, we got to fix. Just like any other illness, I guess you can say, or just things that happen in your body, like a broken arm, for example.
What you're saying is so relevant, so true, and I think so important. I'm from India, and I know that this is a huge issue back in India for
Mm-hmm.
men to go and talk about things, to
Yeah.
seek support. Women are more open to it. But when we moved to the US, I was so surprised that in an advanced country like this, we still have men struggling to seek support and talk about it. It's a lot better. I think the youngsters are a lot more open, but it's still a challenge.
Yeah.
And
And there still is that, I think a term is toxic masculinity, someone coined at some point. And yes, as a male, I need to be strong for my wife and my kids, just like my wife needs to be strong for me.
yeah,
And I think in cultures across the world, we're all human. We're all like, no matter our cultural upbringing, our skin color, our country of origin, the language that we talk, right? All those things, we're still human. And I think there is some things that need to be broken down, like you said, in India. And my hope is that people can hear that and say, it's okay.
it's
It's
okay.
okay for someone to feel broken and need to go talk through it, because you're healing yourself. You're doing better. And you're actually healing your kids and the people
Exactly.
around you. And that's the biggest motivation for me, is with Ashley and I, with her job, growing up in a very masculine, dominating culture that she grew up in here in America, evangelical Christianity, where the man is the head of the household and women stay home and raise their kids. And it was funny because when we first got married, one of our biggest head scratching moments for us was she would work all day. And what was I doing at home? I was sitting at home. So I learned to cook as a kid. I owned the kitchen in my mind. So she wanted to rearrange the kitchen for her way. And I'm like, what are you doing? No. She's like, well, no, this is my spot. This is what I do. And she'll profess that I'm the cook in the family and she's the baker. And that's true. She makes really good baked goods. And my kids know that. And they even say it. But I'm the chef, right? And I like doing that. I like cooking for the family. And that's the culture I grew up in. My stepdad cooked for us. But Ashley couldn't comprehend that. And she felt because of her past identity, she was failing as a wife, that she didn't have the meals prepared and planned out. By the time she got home after working 12-hour days at her job, that was not healthy. And she would go in the office for 10 hours because they had 4 10-hour days, while her bosses would wander in and out for 6 hours, right? They weren't holding the same standard, the male bosses. But she was like, no, I have to be there 10 hours. I'm going to be there 10 hours. I'm going to get up and leave at 7 and go at 5. And it wasn't healthy for her. And then when she come home, she thought she had to clean the house, cook the dinners, make sure I could kick my feet up. And I was getting off at 3 o'clock, Rena. You're getting off at 6? What? And then she would work Fridays when she wasn't had to. And I'm like, this isn't healthy. There's something wrong here. Because her background was telling her something. I was like perplexed. And I was being patient because I'm like, you're weird. What are you doing? You're supposed to cook? No, we both cook. You're supposed to clean? No, that's both of our jobs. This is a partnership. Like, you're making more money than me. I'm a teacher, for crying out loud. I don't make anything compared to her. So when we first got married, there was these conflicts of like backgrounds, and I didn't realize the baggage or the preconceived ideas for her what marriage was, and my preconceived ideas of how to deal with conflict. Oh man, whew. But for her, as we transitioned to having kids, because we want to have kids, we didn't realize all the stuff that was going to unearth. Start out marriage hard, get into marriage, and we're having a lot of fun. We got to travel, we got to do things. We lived like a good life. And then having a kid later in life and having to walk through that process together. Oh man, talk about, okay, get married. Things are different. Throw a kid in the mix. We didn't realize this, but Ashley was postpartum depressed. So we both battled with depression, but we didn't know it. So when we had our baby, she was postpartum. We didn't really realize what that was, the struggle. Our kid ended up being, I don't want to say allergic, but he had a hard time processing milk proteins, dairy protein. It was too big for his gut. So he was colicky, screaming, not sleeping for 6 weeks straight until we figured this out. And no one told us because our parents both weren't really around to teach us. And then after about 6 weeks, Ashley went back to her high stress job. 10-hour days. We'd have to get up at 6 in the morning, get the kid ready, go to daycare, drop him off. We were doing this shuffle, and we were basically barreling toward burnout, both of us. And it was hard because I was raised in a household where my mom hustled. She worked. She busted her butt off to provide. She was a breadwinner. I married a girl who was a high achieving straight A student who had her master's degree, had traveled the world, had done so much, was progressing up the ranks of her office. And I want to support that, do whatever we can. But to me, in the back of my mind, I'm like, something's off, right? I'm barely keeping everything afloat as much as I can. And then we decide to have a second kid. Oh man. Second kid comes 3 years after our first, and we leave the doctor's office or the hospital, and she was iron deficient. And we got her to her doctor. The doctor looked at the levels and was like, oh my gosh, why did they even discharge you without a blood transfusion or without telling you to eat iron? And we're like, we don't know. So that started our second kid journey. So 2 kids, wife that was anemic, postpartum. I'm barely hanging on, struggling to keep all the plates in the air spinning. We have a toddler, we have a newborn. Wife is still working at her crazy job that has high expectations. She got a new boss who was basically gaslighting her left and right and throwing her under the bus with her employees. So, man, Rena, like, bad. Just like when you look back at the craziness, and we're supposed to raise kids and we're supposed to break this generational trauma. And I had stopped going to counseling because I was like, I'm good. I'm through my grief. But now it was like, full on, what the heck is happening? And we needed her money. We needed her job. We had to survive somehow. It was expensive to raise two kids with childcare. So that's where we were at. And I remember her boss, new boss, came over, who I don't like him. He just was not a helpful partner, right? And I'll say that he just was not a good, he had his expectations, right? And he comes over to our house on spring break, and Ashley was going to transition back to work. And he comes over, and I'm giving space to her, watching the kids, doing whatever, and overhearing this conversation. And basically, he was demoting her. He was like, hey, when you come back, I really need you to be a player coach. So not just the coach, you need to travel more. And we're like, but I just had a newborn. I haven't been traveling for years because I got promoted to do this. And right then and there, I'm like, this guy is not good. So we talked after that, and she's like, I don't think I can travel. I'm like, no, you can't. No way. So we had to really make a hard choice, Rena, and we had to say, okay, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? So she ended up quitting her job, and we had to figure it out. And little did I know that all of this stuff that I had been dealing with and carrying the load, more pressure just went on my shoulders because the money situation kicked in. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was tail spinning toward depression. Past trauma, newly married, 5 years in, all the stresses of the world and all the things, I was just getting worn out and burnt out. And Ashley needed to rest. I also needed to rest, but I couldn't because one of us had to be strong. And while I was supporting her, quit your job, we'll figure it out. She had to really do some soul searching, and she went from someone who had constantly worked and constantly busy to now being at home with the kid. And Ashley is a great mother, but she's not a stay-at-home. That's just not her personality. And we joke about that. She's, you're actually better. You'd probably be a better stay-at-home parent. But early on, it was like she realized that about herself. But she was like, I need to rest and I need to do this. And she was eventually able to kind of start volunteering and stuff. And then she was stable enough. But then I cracked. I was at the breaking point of trying to do everything and carry the weight. And I am not a good person to... And we joke about this because she's, you need to let me help you. I'm like, I don't need help. What are you talking about? So I went to counseling again, talked to the doctor. He's like, you're depressed. You have anxiety. I'm like, what does that mean? He's, you need to get on an antidepressant. I'm like, the one that she's on? He's like, yeah, let's start that, see how it works. And it was interesting because I didn't realize it at the time, but my brain was broken. That's part of the easiest way to say it, right? And I started taking this antidepressant to get me through, right? That was the doctor said, just get you through this hard time. And I ended up taking an antidepressant, realizing my brain started to, I guess, get uncluttered or just start to, I felt better, right? It just felt better. Mm-hmm. I ended up winning Teacher of the Year the first year after I got on anti-anxiety antidepressant med. So that's where I think, for me, I was able to then finally talk to people, to finally get the right things for myself. And it actually made me a better dad, a better teacher, a better husband. And even to this day, like, I still have to talk to my counselor about stuff that comes up. Ashley and I still have to walk through hard times. We've been through the fire, though, together. And we've learned that our partnership thrives when we're both talking about what we're going through and getting the help. I even tried to get off my antidepressant, and in 3 weeks, my wife said, what the heck is wrong with you? And I'm like, well, I've tried to wean off of this. She's like, you dummy. And you didn't tell me? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, because I didn't think I had to. So we joke now about that dynamic, right? And even now, like, as she is starting her business, hey, let's start a business in the middle of COVID. Marketing business. Yeah, that sounds smart. Hey, Mike, why don't you go and get your principal license and start a PhD program in the middle of COVID with 2 kids at home? Yeah, that's smart, right? So we're funny because we're high achievers. We can't just stay back and not do stuff. At the same time, we want to instill that value, that work ethic in our kids. And hey,
Yeah.
look, mom is starting a business, mom is doing this. And we're very open with our kids about that, right? And I think that's where both Ashley and I are supporting each other as partners.
Yeah.
She's not above me, I'm not above her. We're equal, we're co equals. And that's really important for us and our values and our core values that we want to pass on to our kids.
Yeah, I've learned so much. You have mentioned so many values that can make a marital relationship healthy, safe, strong, and long lasting.
Mhm.
I was just taking notes, redefine gender roles about whatever your preconceived notions were, and then you've created your own
Mhm.
and you work through that. You've redefined masculinity for yourself, that what does it mean. Seeking help doesn't mean that you are no longer somebody who takes care of his wife and kids, and
Mhm.
it doesn't change that. In fact, you're able to do it better once you sorted out
100%.
whatever was affecting you. And then communication, such a key element within the marriage, and I think the foundation is trust and respect,
Mhm.
just to have that for each other. And we'll continue to have our differences. I guess all marital relationships or
Mhm.
any friendships for
Mhm.
that matter
Yeah.
in life, we are two different people navigating a life together. And
Mhm.
so there are times when we're going to bang our heads together, but it's how we do it.
Yep.
it there might be screaming matches at times and all that.
It happens.
It happens. But then what you do after is what makes, whether
Yeah.
it's coming together, sorting it out. Uh,
Yeah. And that's where I think it's key because for a while we thought we were just going to be able to do it alone
yeah,
together. Right. And coming from a background where both of us saw our parents try to do it alone, and those ended up in flaming failures. And sometimes parents hold on for one reason or the other, wait till the kids are out of the house, wait till that. And they live this false life, right? My parents decided to separate earlier. Her parents decided to separate later, but they still separated because it wasn't healthy.
yeah,
And Ashley and I really are, like you said, trust. That's, I think, the biggest thing is that we have tried our best to build our relationship on trust. And there are times where bad habits kick in, right? And she'll do something, and I like look at her like, "You're asking permission to go spend money on a shirt? We talked about our finances and we're fine. So why are you asking me permission?" "Well, because I don't want you to get mad at me." I'm like, when have I ever gotten mad at you? I might bring up a concern like, "Hey, we don't have the money right now," back when you weren't working.
yeah,
But now we both know where we're at. And money is a big issue always in a relationship or in a partnership, right? That's just where it is.
yeah,
And raising kids and values. But I think the nice part is that Ashley and I both had the core values coming into our relationship,
yeah,
and that we vetted that out. And we had been through enough of life that we knew what we wanted. And when I look back at all of that whole journey and how it sometimes I had to support her and then she wants to support me and I'm so damn stubborn that I don't let her support me and I need to do better at it because I feel like it's a weakness in my mind if I need to rely on her for some things. And a lot of times I don't convey what I need because I feel like, and I've been working on it a lot lately, is hold on, I need a break. I need to stop. I need a timeout. I need to do something this weekend for myself. And getting my PhD was a big, whenever he's like, well, what are you going to do with it? Like being a teacher, high school teacher with PhD, that's not needed. But it was for me. And that was one of the first times I told my wife, I told Ashley, I was like, hey, I'm doing this for myself. And she looks at me, she's okay, finally, you're doing something for yourself. Good. That's what I wanted. Because for so long, I was doing for everyone else because that's what I was taught to do, but it was eating away at me. And I needed to change that pattern because I have to, and it's not selfish. That's where like I have to go through my brain. It's not selfish to do things for yourself.
but we learn it only through experience, I think.
Yeah, we do. And if people are listening and they're like, wow, I need to do something for myself and it's not selfish. Now, if I'm constantly leaving every weekend and going golfing with friends and skiing and not being around my family, there's an issue there, right? But once in a while, go out with your friends, go out and do these things, go out and be together with your spouse, with your partner. That's what you need to do. Do it then. Your kids will be fine. They're going to tell you all and everything, and they're going to be fine.
And then you'll be a happier person because you'll be feeding that part of yourself, which you're not depriving yourself. I don't know if you've heard about Dr. Henry Cloud. He is a psychologist, he's an author, speaker. I absolutely love him. And he once mentioned, and he's a high achiever. So when they had kids and marriage and families, it came to my mind because he's a golfer. And he would obviously go golfing over the weekends. But when the kids came in and his work required him to travel, he was speaking. And then he decided to give up that, okay, no, this is my time for the family, and I'm going to give up golf and spend time with my kids over the weekend because then otherwise I don't get the time to be with them. And he wanted to be a dad. And it was a hard decision for him because he absolutely just loved the game. He wanted to be a professional golfer, but an injury, yeah, that
Dreams
changed.
die.
Exactly. And so he gave up golf for a number of years. But once the kids were out of the house in
Mhm.
college, and now he has the time to, so he
Mhm.
said, okay, that's something that I'll do for myself. And he took up golfing again. It made him happy. Like what you're saying, that's what it reminded me of. It's discernment that, okay, this is what I need to do right now for my family. This is what I need to do right now for my wife, for my kids. But at the same time, somewhere in that hustle, I'll find some time to do something for me.
Yeah.
And
And the
it,
crazy part is like being a professional who wants to do a good job, who has ambitions, who has done a lot. I've recently been asked to do more professionally, right? I sat on a task force that 3 years ago with the Colorado Department of Education. I was the only teacher on this task force and spoke some truth into some programs, and I've seen laws get passed. So now it's, oh, people are seeing like, Mike, no, maybe know what he's doing. So I'm being asked to do more.
yeah,
I got asked to do something this year and kind of came down to it where I said, well, hold on, pause. If I do this, I know this is going to take this amount of time. And that time then, either I'm doing it outside of school or during school and work from school, then has to go outside. I need to be paid because I was doing a lot of volunteer work because my wife was getting irritated at me and I kept volunteering for stuff because I'm like, hey, prestige. Oh, this is fun. And I like policy work. I like speaking into change that needs to happen. So finally, like I'm being asked to do more and more. And my wife was like, no, you have to say no or you have to get paid. And I'm like, teachers don't do that. They just do. And finally, I put my foot down. I was like, I need to get paid. So I calculated the pay and I knew my number was going to be steep for the principal to swallow. And I went in, I was like, this is what I need. Oh, we don't have that. Oh, can you do it for that? No, I've already spent that much time. So what you just told me is for the time I already spent that I was waiting on you getting paid. Oh, well, we really need. I'm like, yeah, it's important. I get it. This is important for our school, but no. And setting that boundary was like almost freeing because now I'm realizing, like, wait a minute, Mike, do you really have to speak during this meeting? Is this really your job to do this? You're not getting paid for that. So just you can sit and be quiet and be a team player, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to carry that burden. And that's really shifted for me professionally because I think from my personal life where I was able to release responsibility of, oh gosh, if I don't do this, what's the worst thing going to happen? Well, my kid is going to spend some more time on the iPad today. I need to take care of myself. If I don't cook Ashley's dinner tonight, is she going to survive? Yeah, she'll just go to Chick-fil-A on the way home and get something. Like giving myself permission to not have to do everything for everybody. Now that's spilling over my work life. And like, I had a choice where I was asked by the superintendent to lead a summer school program, or I was being asked to help lead a school based program. And I made a choice where I was like, I would rather do the summer school program and they're going to pay me what I'm worth. And I've really been able to expand my knowledge and change some things that I see that are wrong in teaching and tell my teachers a very simple thing because, oh, Rena, it's so bad. Teachers are so bad. Elementary teachers are the worst with money. I told them there is no budget. And they're like, no budget? Well, yeah, you have 3 weeks. Plan what you need, no budget. And if you go over budget, I'll tell you. So my high school teachers are spending $1,000 here for this and that. My elementary school teachers, is $150 too much? And I'm like, oh my gosh. They have a deficit mindset. So I'm now able to hopefully change the mindsets of some teachers. And that's professionally where I'm finally able to say no and put boundaries and tell other teachers, no, it's okay to put boundaries. Don't spend your own money. So this is where like my progression of where I've been and learned, now I'm able to help others. And that's really where I feel like my next steps are going to be, whether it's in education, whether it's in speaking, teaching, policy, whatever the route I'm going to go. I feel like where I'm going and my experiences, I can really help at least one person. That's why I'm a teacher. I'm wanting to be a teacher to help people. And I see it day in and day out with kids, and I run into kids all the time. And I'm like, wow, like you guys are grown up and you spread your wings and you have careers. And I might have had just a moment when I spoke to you and that changed your trajectory. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe you just had fun in my class. Maybe you just came and got credit and was able to graduate, right? So I think it's very humbling to see the ability to outreach and take what I've learned and help others. And that's really where I'm at, where I think as I'm entering into the later phase of my life, which is crazy to think about, right? Is that as we get older, it's like, what's the legacy are we going to leave? Can I impact kids who maybe will impact the world? Right? Or can I impact my own kids to be better parents than Ashley and I are, and that our parents were, and that their parents were? And the journey is crazy because there's so many layers of things
Of
that
things.
have happened.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking forward to what's next and
Yeah.
what we can do as a society to break down stigmas to, like you said, how do we get potentially more males to understand that it's okay across cultural boundaries, because my brain's the same as someone else's halfway across the world, right?
Exactly. The color, the language, none of that matters because inside we all function the same. We have the
Yep.
same emotions, we have the same structure. Our stories might be different, our filters might be different because of our experiences. But the way the brain processes stuff, the basic, all of it remains the same. Yeah. So, how do you look back at it all? The whole journey from your childhood to now,
Yeah.
it's been a roller coaster, right?
Lifelong learner, Rena.
Yeah.
Like, what I think I've realized is that there is never a point in my life where there hasn't been presented an opportunity to learn about myself and others. And with that learning, and I'm still learning to this day, it takes pausing, calming my brain, because sometimes I'm thinking about too much, and really listening and being that person who is listening and asking the right questions. And I think as you journey with others, and I look back at my journey, there's been times where I thought I've had it all figured out. I'm 20. I got it all figured out. I'm 45 now. I don't have anything figured out. Have I learned a lot? Have I grown a lot? Do I have the opportunity to instill into others? Of course. But man, there's so much to this life, to this world that we just don't know. And I think being a lifelong learner and always thirsting to learn about others and yourself and be willing to change and being willing to address the hard moments in life so that you can thrive, right? So that really, when you change yourself, it's not a bad thing. It just is presenting an opportunity potentially to do better and to be able to do more and to help others do more and live that life to the fullest. And you might not ever be thriving, right? I don't think I'm ever thriving, but I feel like you're surviving, you're living, you're thriving, right?
Yeah.
I've survived a lot. Now I feel like we're finally living, and
Yeah.
hopefully soon we'll be thriving. And I think that continuum, you can be in the dumps, but you always want to get out of that stage. And it takes hard work, learning, talking.
Those are such wisdom nuggets. What advice would you give to, let's say, couples or somebody who's going through challenging times right now, who's in the midst of it?
I would say look back to why you're with that person. Trust them. Be willing to work on it together. You can't do it on your own. If you're going to try to do it by yourself without your partner, without your spouse, it's going to be 20 times harder. Once you get to the point of doing it alone with maybe a counselor and with your spouse, you might need to pull in someone else, marital counseling, And when you got to start your first year out of marriage in marital counseling, that's pretty humbling. But I would not be where I am today if I didn't take that commitment and be willing to do that with Ashley and be okay with it, to say, look, we don't have it all figured out. What else is there to learn about each other? And when those challenges come, even to this day, even last night, I was having a challenging moment and I had to go back into my toolkit and say, okay, what do I need right now? I need to walk away before I lose my stuff. And I had to communicate to that Ashley, even though she was also she was better off than I was, but she was able to take care of the kids and I had to walk away. And that was okay. And now those are the tools that you learn. The night before, it was reverse, right? Where she was stressing about something and I had to look at her. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're bringing up something from years ago. Why is that affecting you now? And being patient. And I've had so many friends who I don't think have been willing to address these things. And unfortunately, they end not well. And sometimes divorce is not a fun option, but it was the best thing for my mom. I don't think it's ideal. I think when you get married, when you're with someone, you want to be with them. I think that's most people's intentions. At the same time, though, if you're not willing to change and if you're not willing to address the things that are happening that are hard and that you're just shoving it down, you're not bringing your best self into the partnership, in the relationship. And you really have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, is this really what I want? And at some points, like, it might not be. Those are the hard realities, Rena, is like not everybody's cut out for marriage. It's hard. It is not easy. If you think that marriage is, you're going to walk in and life is going to be so much better and taken care of, oh man, rude awakening, right? And I've even mentored kids and I've even officiated a wedding of two former students of mine. And I told them straight up what I was doing. And I'm like, this is not easy, guys. And they're still married. They're still married 12 years later. They're making it, right? And my hope is that they make it and they continue to make it. But it takes work. And it's going to take work once our kids are out of the house because we're going to transition to a different phase. And the work starts now, though, where we're both looking at each other. We need to connect. How are we going to do that? It just takes work. You got to be willing to do it. So that's my advice. Do the work. And the work is going to get you out of your comfort zone. And the changes, when they do come, because they will come, they will always come. And they are going to be easy sometimes. They're going to be hard sometimes.
So many different people play different roles in our lives. Counselor is one, but it could be a friend, it could be just a role model, it could be a mentor.
A former teacher, make sure that you get the help that you need and be okay with it.
Yeah.
And in the long run, you're helping everybody around yourself. The people you love the most will benefit from the work that you put in.
What were some struggles that you and Ashley were facing prior to seeking help, and how did that shift once you took help?
Yeah, I think so. First off, have you ever read the book Who Moved My Cheese?
I've heard about it.
It's about change, right? Change management in a business. When things change, how do you adapt? I don't like it when people move my cheese. I have my kitchen set up the way I want. Ashley wanted to move something. I got mad. So that was right away as me having to adapt my way of life. And I had to change to adapt and accommodate someone else. Same for her. I think both of us were very independent people. And when you come together, now you're partners, and now things aren't going to exactly line up. So I think really in marriage, when you go into it, there's a lot of different philosophies about marriage, right? And we took the philosophy of we are one family now. So we're combining everything. And the reason why people might not do that is because it's hard. It's hard. It takes a lot of communication and a lot of compromise too. I think that's another key, is that you're not going to get your way on everything. And if you are getting your way on everything and you're bulldozing your spouse, there's something wrong. The spouse is probably not happy, right? The spouse is probably holding back things and building resentment that are going to blow up later. So I think being willing to read the signs, understand what's happening, understand the person that you're together with, and being willing to change and pause and ask, work together on things. Financial decisions, those are hard ones. It's number one reason for divorce is
Yeah.
money issues. People can't communicate. That's why people have two separate bank accounts. Well, I pay for the mortgage, you pay for everything else. I've heard that. And I'm like, it's all together. It's all our money, right? And we've tried different things, and it's just permission. We have to talk about it. We have to work together. I don't agree with everything. She doesn't agree with everything that I do either. We have to give permission to trust the other Big life decisions you obviously have to talk through. If we're going to buy a car, I involved her in the process. If I'm going to buy headphones, I'm just going to buy them, right? I should just be able to have permission, even though I don't give myself permission to buy stuff, just like her. So I think tangibly with marriage, the things I would take away is be willing to compromise, be willing to adapt with the changes when they come, the unforeseen changes, and just be willing to trust. You have to be built on trust. And if you don't have that trust, you got to build that somehow. Whether you have had toxic relationships in the past, whether one spouse did something wrong, trust can always be rebuilt and it can always be built up. It's never gone, right? And is it hard? Yep. Is it hard to make your mistakes? Yep. Is it hard to work on yourself? Yep. Is life easy? Nope. But it's fulfilling if you do.
Yeah. That's a big one, that it can be built again. It takes steps from both sides and communication, but it can be built again. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank
Okay.
you. A wonderful conversation. I've learned so much, and I think I've processed so many things in my head
Same.
as we've had this conversation. So I really value that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Rena. Appreciate it. And yeah, looking forward to see where you go with all this and the lives that are changed.
If you found our content valuable, please like, share, and subscribe and spread the word. I think the best compliment is being referred. That one action of yours can help us reach more and more people and fulfill the mission of thriving changes. Thank you for considering.